Hey guys, welcome back for another video. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to be looking at our Week 2 NFL games for the 2024 football season. We are going to be doing our predictions video. We're going to go game by game, try to predict the outcome for every game, who we think is going to win, lose, the money lines, the spreads, and the over-unders. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below and I will make sure to respond. Follow along with us. We are going over every game, every week of the 2024 NFL season, as well as doing the same thing for every top 25 game for the 2024 college football season as well. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. So week 2 is here. Week 1 is in the books. There were some crazy games. There were some upsets. There were some blowouts. There were some things that we didn't know were going to happen. There were some things that we were prepared to happen. But let's go ahead and get things started. So kicking things off in week 2 on Prime, we have our Thursday night Prime game at 8:15 p.m. We have the 1-0 Buffalo Bills playing the 1-0 Miami Dolphins. ESPN has the Buffalo Bills 50.6% chance to win. The Dolphins are coming in here as the underdogs on ESPN, 49% chance to win. But Vegas has the Fins as 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. Both teams had crazy Week 1 performances. Buffalo was in a complete shootout. They pulled the game out. Miami, they were down, 17-7 in the fourth quarter, and then they racked off a bunch of touches. Tua hit Hill for that 80-yard touchdown. Waddle stepped up, had some big catches, and then they made the field goal to ice the game. They took it right out of the Jaguars' hands. This game is going to be in Miami. It's going to be an interesting game because I want to say the Fins are going to win this, but when you look at Buffalo, they have Josh Allen, they have Keon Coleman, they have Cook, but too much of the offense is running through Josh Allen right now. We know that they got rid of Diggs in the offseason. That's a massive loss. They lost a lot of defensive players. They had salary cap issues. It's just so much is running on him right now. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. The guy's doing everything. This entire team is on his back. How long is that sustainable for? For the Dolphins, they probably have one of the best wide receiver corps in the country. You have Tua, Waddle, Hill, Berrios, Achin, Mostert. This team is loaded. Defensive. Phillips had some massive sacks and pressures in the fourth quarter when they needed him to step up. I want Miami to win this game. The reason that I say that is this is a pretty fun rivalry. They split it last year. Usually they go 1-1. My heart tells me Miami's going to win it, but my gut tells me Buffalo pulls it out. I have Buffalo winning this one 27-24, and obviously that spread not getting covered. The next game we're looking at, we're now moving on to our Sunday games. At 1 p.m. on Sunday, we have the 1-0 New Orleans Saints versus the 1-0 Dallas Cowboys. This game's at 1 p.m. ESPN has the Cowboys with a 59.6% chance to win this game. The Cowboys are 6.5-point favorites, the over-under 45.5. We know that New Orleans had that massive win this past weekend. They scored 47 points. They haven't scored that many points since probably the Drew Brees era. They had a very inept offense last season. Olave didn't do much, but Carr actually had a pretty decent game. Kamara went off. He had 83 yards, 1 touchdown. Carr was very accurate. Shaheed had a great game as the wide receiver for the Cowboys. We know the Cowboys are almost virtually impossible to beat in Dallas. They're a very tough home team to have to come in there and beat them in Jerry World. Prescott didn't have to do too much this past weekend. He didn't have a great game, but he did just enough to win the game. Elliott had an all-right game. To me, they need to focus a little bit on the run game. They need more performance out of the running back position. We know who CeeDee Lamb is. We know that he's one of the best wideouts in the country. And we know the Cowboys are going to have an elite defense, a top 5 defense, just like they had last season. You have the Saints coming in here. Yes, they scored 47 points. That's not going to happen versus the Cowboys. Carr and company, you're not good enough to get 47 points in Jerry World. Look for Parsons to get a lot of pressures here. The Cowboys had 6 sacks last weekend. I have the Cowboys winning this one at home 30-14 and covering the spread. The next one is going to be a really fun one. This could be a really close game. Sunday at 1 p.m., we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 1-0 visiting the 1-0 Detroit Lions. This game is going to be on Fox. Detroit at home. They have a 65.3% chance to win this game. They are 7-point favorites, and the over-under is 51.5. Vegas has this being a pretty high-scoring game, and you definitely see why. Both teams were moving the ball in week one. Tampa Bay had a great game. Their defensive line looks really good. They're able to shut the run game down. And their offense, you have Baker Mayfield, had 4 passing touchdowns. He was one of the comeback players of the year last year. Very efficient, doesn't make too many mistakes, and he had a really solid game. So they're coming into this game riding high. Irving had a great game at running back. They have Godwin. They have Evans, a very deep wide receiver core with veteran players, guys he can force feed the ball to on third down. But Detroit, they're no slouch. This is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. They almost had it last season. They have the Super Bowl in their sights this season. They want to continue the momentum they've had the last 2 years. You had Goff, had a great season last year. He's going to have a good season this season. They have a very deep running back core. They have a lot of playmakers. They have Williams at wide receiver. They have St. Brown at wide receiver. They have Montgomery. They have Gibbs. They can pass the ball. They can run the ball. They have a solid defense. I have Detroit winning this one at home, 30-24. That would not be covering the spread, but I think that spread's probably going to come down by game time, so keep your eye on that. But this game could go either way. This is both two playoff caliber teams facing off here. Our next matchup also on Sunday is going to be on Fox at 1 p.m. The 0-1 Colts versus the 0-1 Packers. Both of these teams are looking for their first win. The Colts are on the road, but they have a 54% chance to win this game, and they are also the favorites. They're 3-point favorites here. The over-under is 40.5. Obviously, the biggest story here is this could have been two of our young, good quarterbacks playing versus one another. But unfortunately, Jordan Love did get hurt last week. He's out 4 to 6 games. He's not going to be playing here. So the Packers are leaderless. They're going to be looking at Malik Willis to lead them. Obviously, you're going to see a massive drop-off in the offensive production. Had Love been playing, Packers are probably, obviously, the favorites at home. But it's going to be the Colts right now. You have Anthony Richardson, missed a lot of last season, had not a good passing performance by any means first game last week. I think he was 9 of 19 for like 210 yards, had 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. But we know he's obviously a quarterback that can run. He can run a lot. He has a lot of physical talents, a lot of physical attributes. Look for the Colts to keep this game on the ground. They're going to ground and pound with their deep running back core and with Richardson himself. They have playmakers at the running back position. They have Jacobs. They have Taylor. They have Pierce as the wide receiver. So they can definitely run the ball because they're going to have a lot of guys in motion. They have playmakers at wide receiver. For the Packers, this isn't a great offensive squad, especially without their leader, Love. They have Jacobs, though. He's a great running back, and they have Reed. But the Colts are going to be focusing on the run game. They know that the Packers, without Love, they're not going to be able to beat them through the air. So they're just going to stack the line, and they're going to come after Willis, and they're going to get a lot of pressures on him. I have the Colts winning this one 23-14 and covering the spread. Our next game is at 1 p.m. on Sunday on CBS. We have the 0-1 New York Jets versus the 0-1 Tennessee Titans. Both teams also looking for their first win. The Jets are on the road, but they have a 58.5% chance to win this game. They are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is 41.5. When you're looking at these Jets, they just came off of getting beat down by the San Francisco 49ers. You saw some flashes there of what could be, and then you saw what has been. So Aaron Rodgers, he does not have the legs that he used to have by any means. He was not able to extend plays, but he still has the arm. They have a couple playmakers there. He has a couple guys that he can rely on. You have Breece Hall. You have Garrett Wilson. There's got some guys there, but there's a lot of drop balls, sloppy play, but they haven't gotten to play much the last 2 years, and Rodgers did not play practically the whole preseason, so they're rusty. Look for them to be getting better, more efficient every single week. We know the Jets are going to have a top 10 defense. They did not look like it at all in week 1. They got curb stomped up and down the field. At one point, they gave up 7 straight scoring possessions. I don't think that they're necessarily going to have to worry about that with the Tennessee Titans, though. They don't have the playmaker. So Will Levis did not have a good week 1. He only had 127 passing yards. That's not good enough. They have Pollard at running back. They have Ridley. So they have some guys there that are veterans that can make plays. But look for the Jets, to me, to get the rebound here on the road. Their defense is too good, and Rodgers is one of the GOATs. I have the Jets winning this one 23-17 and covering the spread. The next game that we're going to look at 1 p.m. on Sunday on CBS, the 1-0 San Francisco 49ers versus the 1-0 Minnesota Vikings. San Francisco's on the road. They have a 63.2% chance to win this game. They are 6-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5. When you're looking at this game, San Francisco is coming off of beating up the Jets, moving the ball at will. They had wide open players down the field the whole game, and the Jets have a solid defense, a solid defensive line, far superior than the Vikings. So if they can beat up on the Jets, they should theoretically be able to move the ball on the Vikings. The 49ers have easily the best top-to-bottom roster in the entire country, one of the best defensive teams, a top 3 defense easily, a top 3 offense. They have Purdy, they have Mason filling in for a hurt McCaffrey, and you saw literally no loss there. He filled in perfectly, catching the ball out of the backfield, running the ball. They have Jennings, they have Debo, they have Ayuk, weapons all over the field. Plus Kittle, they can literally beat you on defense, passing the ball, running the ball, special teams, whatever they need to do. Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy, he got hurt preseason. Sam Darnold stepped in, had a really solid game week 1. I'm not buying it, though, as some permanent thing going forward. He has a good game, so it seems like he's always due to have a god-awful game and have 3 picks the very next week. It doesn't help him that the very next week is now versus the 49ers defense. Even though they're at home, Jones had a great game at the running back position, had 100 yards on 14 carries. Solid game, but you're not going to run down the 49ers' throat. I have San Francisco winning this one on the road, 27-14 and covering the spread. The next game also at 1 p.m. on Fox. We have the 1-0 Seattle Seahawks versus the 1-0 New England Patriots. This game is at New England. The Seahawks on the road, 55.6% chance to win this game. They are 3.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 37.5. Seattle won in week 1 with a steady dose of Walker III, basically just lining it up, running it down your throat. They're going to look to do the same thing versus New England. They had a great week 1, but that to me was kind of a illusion. I don't in any way foresee that happening. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals, and they beat them bad. I don't think that that's going to be some permanent thing going forward. They had a great game. You can't take that away from them. Geno Smith should just do enough to get the win here. He's not going to light things up, but he should play stable enough to get you to win. Just rely on Kenneth Walker. Put the ball in his hands. You have Lockett. You have DK Metcalf. You got the playmakers there. So just don't ask too much of Geno Smith. Let the game come to him. For the Patriots, obviously, they haven't started Drake May. They went with Jacoby Brissett. He had a game where he didn't make any mistakes, and that's really what he can get for you. He's not going to win you the game. Just don't do anything to lose the Patriots the game. Stevenson had 120 yards on the ground. Props to him. Solid game, but I don't see that being something that they can rely on week in and week out. I have Seattle winning this one on the road, 23-17 and covering the spread. The next game we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 0-1 New York Giants versus the 0-1 Washington Commanders. Washington at home, 61.1% chance to win the game. Very close game here, practically a push. They're 1.5-point favorites. The over-under is 43.5. So Vegas with Washington as 1.5-point favorites. They don't have much confidence in Washington because the New York Giants looked pathetic in week 1. That's really not surprising. Daniel Jones is what he has been for a while. He should have never got that contract. He did not have a good season when he got the contract. He was awful last year prior to getting hurt, and he looked just as bad in week 1. At some point, you just have to wonder, when are they going to pull the Band-Aid off? The Daniel Jones experiment has kind of run its course. That's a busted contract. They're going to have a bad season, but hopefully they'll get a top pick out of it and they can draft their next quarterback. Singletary, they just have too much pressure on him and Jones because all that Jones can do is basically run the ball. So they're stacking the line. Neighbors, though, looks like a solid a solid wide receiver going forward. It's just he doesn't have a quarterback who can legitimately get him the ball on every single possession. For Washington, they didn't have a bad offense last season. Now you added in Daniels at the quarterback position, 17 of 24, a very good first performance as an NFL quarterback, but what about 88 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground? Obviously, that's not something that you want to rely on week in and week out because you're going to get the guy hurt. If he's forced to have to run, though, he's more than capable of scrambling, getting you the yards. I have Washington winning this one at home, 23-17, and covering the spread. Our next game also at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 1-0 LA Chargers versus the 0-1 Panthers. The Chargers on the road, 67.4% chance to win this game. They are 6.5-point favorites. Over-under is 38.5. This is two teams going in entirely different directions. The Chargers had a fresh start. They brought in Harbaugh. Yes, they lost a lot of pieces, but you have a legit anchor at the quarterback position. Justin Herbert basically didn't have to do anything to get the win in week 1. He only had 144 yards, but that's Harbaugh's system. The quarterback does not have to completely control the game, put everything on him. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be physical. They're going to play sound defense. He's getting the most out of these players. But if it turns into a shootout, you have a big-armed quarterback who's more than capable of scoring if he has to. But what about J.K. Dobbins? 135 yards on 10 carries. Crazy stats. They're going to put the game on him, but look for Herbert to have more yards this game because it's the Panthers. And Panthers, they were the worst team in the NFL last season, and after 1 week, they legitimately look like the worst team in the NFL this season. Bryce Young, awful game. Sanders, bad game. Thielen, it was bad across the board. They have no defense. They don't look any better than last year. Yes, it's just week 1, but they need a lot of pieces at every position on both sides of the ball. I have the Chargers winning this one 28-17 and covering the spread. The next game is one that I actually flipped on from my previous video. So at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 0-1 Cleveland Browns versus the 0-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. Browns just got throttled by the Cowboys, and the Jags just had a heartbreaking loss versus the Miami Dolphins. The Jags at home, 56.7% chance to win this game. They are 3-point favorites. The over-under 41.5. I had the Browns winning this game. Their defense is a top 10 defense. They have Myles Garrett. They can get after the quarterback. The Jags don't have necessarily the best offensive line, so look for Garrett to be able to get a lot of pressures on Trevor Lawrence, who in the second half of the week 1 game versus the Dolphins, he was getting hit a lot, forced him into some careless decisions. I could see that getting mimicked in week 2 versus the Browns, who have a very solid roster, a very deep defensive staff. But the big thing is Deshaun Watson. There's new allegations that have come out. I don't know what's going to happen with him. He's never lost to the Jags, I don't think. I think he's 6-0 versus the Jags. But does that really matter? There's so much going on off the field. I don't even know if he's going to play this game. The guy might get benched. The guy might get suspended. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff coming out. He doesn't really seem like he wants to play. He looked awful versus the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have a really solid defense, so I don't necessarily know that I want to look too much into that. But Travon Walker had a great game for the Jags. He's going to get pressure on Watson, who was pressured the whole week 1 game versus the Cowboys. So I'm going to go with the Jags to win this one now, 23-17 and covering the spread, just because I don't even know what's going on at the quarterback position right now for the Browns. The next game at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 0-1 Raiders versus the 0-1 Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens almost had a win versus the Chiefs, but they weren't quite able to close it out. The Ravens have a 71.7% chance to win the game, 9.5-point favorites. That is a massive spread for an NFL game. The over-under is 41.5 with the Raiders. So obviously they have some quarterback question marks. Gardner Minshew did not have a bad game week 1. He's kind of been a starter / fill-in quarterback. When he plays good, he plays pretty good. When he plays bad, he looks really bad. So it could go Jekyll. It could go Hyde. It's kind of a 50-50 coin flip right now. They have White at running back. They have Myers at wide receiver. They don't have a bad wide receiver core. They do not have a bad team at all. They have a very decent defense. They can get after the quarterback. They can shut the run game down, but it's going to be hard to shut the Baltimore Ravens run game down. They were the number 1 rushing team last season. What'd they do? They added Derrick Henry at the running back position. Lamar Jackson himself had 122 rushing yards in week 1. You don't want to rely on him running. You want to do that as a last case scenario because you don't want the guy to get hurt. But this team could easily end up running for 200 to 250 yards on you any given week. Likely at tight end. What a massive pickup. They have Mark Andrews. They didn't even have to really use him that much in week 1. They have one of the better offensive rosters. They have a great defense. They have a top 5 defense. They have a top 5 offense. This is a team that also has Super Bowl aspirations. They're more than capable, more than talented enough to get there. I have the Ravens winning this one 30-20 and covering that massive spread. Like I said, that's a huge spread for an NFL game, but I think they're going to cover it this week. The next matchup, Sunday at 4:05 on Fox, the 0-1 LA Rams versus the 0-1 Cardinals. The Rams on the road, 53% chance to win this game. But as of right now, Vegas has the Cardinals as 2-point favorites. I was actually kind of surprised by that. The over-under is 49.5. We know that LA, their offense looked excellent in week 1, but their defense is complete Swiss cheese. Stafford had a really solid game, 34 of 49, 317 yards. He was chucking it up and down the field. They have Williams as a running back. They have Cooper Kupp, who when he's on, he's one of the best wide receivers. When he's on and when he's not hurt, he's one of the best wide receivers in the country. But they did just lose Nakua. That is a massive possession loss. The guy can get you 1,500 yards. Not having him on the field, yes, that means more looks for Kupp, but that also means that they can zone in on him a lot more. But thankfully for the Rams, the Cardinals' defense is probably way worse than theirs. Cardinals are getting torched up and down the field. They have no pass rush at all. You can run on them. You can throw on them. Stafford's probably going to have a lot of time to find guys wide open. He's a veteran quarterback. He's more than capable of picking you apart. Kyler Murray, he didn't have a bad game. He didn't have a good game. We know that he's capable of high highs, though, if he's on. The Rams' defense isn't good, so he's going to be able to run, throw. Probably going to have between 200 to 300 total yards in this game easily. Marvin Harrison Jr., we want to see him show up, get some touches. He needs to find him open somewhere on the field. But I'm going to go with the Rams getting the win here, winning this one 27-23. So obviously that spread not being covered. Our next matchup at 4:25 p.m. on CBS, the 1-0 Pittsburgh Steelers versus the 0-1 Denver Broncos. For the Steelers, obviously Wilson's hurt. They ruled out Justin Fields at the quarterback position, and I said he should have been the starter anyways. I think he has the higher ceiling as of right now where Wilson is in his career. He's a dynamic quarterback. See what you can get out of him. The guy's mobile. The guy can throw. What's his ceiling yet? We don't know, but let's try to find out here. Steelers, we know under Mike Tomlin, they're going to have a top 10 defense. They have they're going to get after it. They're going to force turnovers. They're going to get pressure on the quarterback. For Denver, obviously, you have Bo Nix, named the starter. He's a rookie. Did not have a good game at all week 1. It was week 1. He's a rookie. He does not have a stacked roster, so you don't want to put too much into that. But Sean Payton, he's definitely going to have to try to adapt the game plan a lot more. They played a decent defense last week, but the Steelers are going to be something completely different. They're going to look to bottle up Bo Nix, keep him from being able to run on them, force him to have to throw the ball. So we could get some turnovers this game. If you had the Steelers defense in fantasy, I'd probably be playing them this weekend. They have Fields, they have Harris, they have Pickens, they have a solid defense. I have the Steelers winning this one. They're 3-point favorites over under 36.5. I'm going Pittsburgh winning 21-16 and covering the spread. The next matchup on CBS at 4:25, the 0-1 Cincinnati Bengals versus the 1-0 Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs at home, 64.9% chance to win this game. They're 6-point favorites. The over-under is 47.5. This should have been one of the biggest games of the season. Everything should have been building up for this game, but it completely fell apart. The Bengals looked like god-awful garbage in week 1. They lost to the New England Patriots. They didn't just lose to the Patriots. They got curb stomped by a really bad Patriots team. The Bengals started out last season really bad, and then Burrow kind of got better every single week, kind of got back to form, and then he got hurt. Burrow looked bad in week 1, but maybe things are just going to kind of play out the same way this season, and he's going to be getting better every single week. But it would have been really cool to see a hot Burrow in week 1 playing Patrick Mahomes, because we know that Burrow is capable of beating Kansas City. They have done it before. This is a very talented team. You have Burrow, you have Chase, you have Moss, you got weapons at running back, deep wide receiver core, and you have Burrow who's capable of slinging it. A solid defense, a solid offensive line. But Kansas City, they're going to have a top offense. They're going to have a top 3
defense, they are just coming off of having beaten the Ravens, who are a Super Bowl contending team. They beat them. They're riding high right now. They're the defending Super Bowl winners. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have Pacheco. They have Rice. They have Worthy. They have Kelsey. They have weapons everywhere. I'm going Kansas City to win this one 27-20 and cover the spread. But if Cincinnati plays up to the potential we know they have, this game could end up being a lot closer. This next matchup could be kind of interesting. So on Sunday on NBC at 8:20, we have the 1-0 Chicago Bears versus the 1-0 Houston Texans. The reason that I say that it could be interesting is you have two quarterbacks with high talent ceiling. So you have obviously Heisman winner Caleb Williams. He did have a pretty bad week 1 game, 14 of 29 for 93 yards, but he's got to be better than that. He's the number 1 pick. That can possibly be his ceiling. He has to be a lot better than that. Look for him to have a better game this week. I'm not saying that he's going to throw for 350 yards, but he's obviously going to get more than 93 yards. They have Swift at running back. They have Moore at wide receiver, who's a really good wideout. It's just Caleb Williams, you got to get him the ball. Bears have a decent defense. That should be able to keep any game close for Houston, a very talented team. You have C.J. Stroud, one of the best young quarterbacks in the country. You have Mixon at running back. He had 160 yards rushing. You are adding him to a team that's already deep at the wide receiver position. Collins, Diggs, this team is loaded. They can pass it. They can run it. I have the Texans. They're 6.5-point favorites here. The over-under 45.5, but I'm going to go out on the ledge and say Caleb Williams plays a lot better. I have Houston winning it 27-23, but the spread not being covered. And our final game is our Monday night game on ESPN at 8:15. The 0-1 Atlanta Falcons versus the 1-0 Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles 63.9% chance to win this game. They're 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is 47.5. This game has the makings to be a potential shootout, high-scoring game. The Falcons have one of the better rosters in football. They did not look like it last week. Kirk Cousins actually looked awful. He needs to be a lot better than that, but he's probably pretty rusty. Did not play much the preseason, but he has Penix looking over his shoulder, and he's coming off of an injury from last year. He's just probably rusty, so hopefully for Falcons fans, he does get better as these games go along, as he gets a little more comfortable in this scheme and in this system. But he had 2 picks last week, 155 yards. We know he can sling it when it's time to sling it. We're just waiting for that Cousins to show up. But they have Bijan Robinson, they have Algier, they have London, they have McLeod III, they have Pitts. Lots of weapons there. Just get him the ball, and you have a solid defense. For the Eagles, they kind of look like where they left off last season. Their offense can score, they have a lot of turnovers, and their defense is putrid. They're scoring points this year. They're getting a lot of turnovers from their own offense, and their defense is giving up points. So they just basically had to try to outscore you. This is a very talented team, but they have not been playing up to their full potential since they were in the Super Bowl. They're scoring points, but they need to be more efficient, more responsible with the ball, and their defense has to try to get a stops. But there's going to be some open lanes there for the Falcons to go blow for blow with them. But you got weapons. You have Hurts. You have Barkley, who had 110 yards. You have A.J. Brown. You have Smith. The weapons are there. Get in the ball. Don't have turnovers. I have the Eagles winning this one 28-23, not covering the spread because I think this could be a high-scoring shootout. Whoever has the ball last could potentially win, or whoever has the ball last could get a turnover, and that's what ends the game. But I have the Eagles winning, but not covering the spread. So that's our breakdown of our Week 2 NFL predictions. Go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments on any of these picks, go ahead and drop them below, and I'll make sure to respond. Thank you.